Hello, everybody. We are finally to the writing assessment for topic 2 of Unit 5, and we are going to work together to write a claim to answer this question. It says, what was life like for poor immigrants in the early 1900s? Be sure to use evidence from your primary and secondary sources to identify both the struggles and benefits of immigrating to the U.S. urban areas in the 1900s. All right, so I need to not only answer the question, but I need to be sure to identify some of these struggles, which I'm going to go ahead and highlight so I don't forget that, as well as some of the benefits of migrating to the United States. Well, these two words represent two very different things. Struggles are going to be hard things that they had to go through, and benefits are going to be helpful things. All right, so in my answer, I want to be sure to list some of the good things and some of the bad things that immigrants had to go through when they got here to America. All right, so whenever I start writing a claim in social studies, I need to be sure to start with the words, I claim that. This lets the reader know that I am creating a claim. So normally what I teach my students is after we write I claim that, we go ahead and follow the RACE, R-A-C-C-E, strategy to help us write. So we're going to start by restating the question. It says the question is, what was life like for poor immigrants in the early 1900s? So to restate this, I'm going to take off the question words of what and was, and I'm going to say I claim that life for poor immigrants in the early 1900s was like, and then I'm going to fill in my answers. Okay, so I was going to say I claim that life for poor immigrants in the early 1900s was blank for something good that happened to the immigrants and blank, a struggle that they had. Okay, so let's talk about some possible answers real quick. Possible answers that I could put on those blanks. Well, let's talk about some of the benefits. Let's start with the good things. So they were able to have economic opportunities. That was one of their main motivations. They came here so that they could have the opportunity to get a job, to make money for their families. A lot of them also came for personal freedom, to be able to believe how they wanted to believe and to have some of the freedoms that we have here in America, the freedom of speech, the freedom of press, things like that. Okay, now some of the struggles could include maybe poor living conditions. Think about those tenements. Maybe the backlash from American citizens not accepting you. Maybe they were jealous that you were taking some of their jobs. And there are plenty of other answers that we haven't listed, but here were just a couple of examples. Okay, so after we have restated and answered, now it is time to provide our evidence. So I always start my first piece of evidence with for example, and then I like to start my second piece of evidence with for instance. Okay, so I'm going to provide a piece of evidence for each of my answers. One piece of evidence that supports my answer about something good or helpful that came from immigrating to America. And then I'm going to provide one piece of evidence that supports one of the struggles that they had moving here to America. So let's talk about where we could get some of these pieces of evidence. Let's say I'm looking for one of the motivations, one of the good things that came from immigrating to the United States. Well, I'm going to go back to my slides presentation, and I could go all the way up to slide 5, which has a source on it saying some of the motivations are the reasons why people move to the United States for personal freedom, for economic opportunities, and things like that. So I could quote something from there. And then if I wanted a piece of evidence about the poor living conditions, I could go to any of those pictures in the slides and use that as my piece of evidence to show, hey, living here was not easy. Okay, so I'm going to say, for example, in the source, whichever source you're going to use, it states what? What does it say? Put it in quotation marks to show that you are copying it from the text. All right, then in your second piece of evidence, you could say in source, or maybe you want to say an image from the slides, an image blank. It shows, because the picture doesn't tell you anything, it shows you something. It shows what? And you're going to put in your own words, what did it show you? They lived in really nasty conditions. It was not pleasant. It was very small and crowded. Okay, those are just a few examples. So lastly, we're to our E in our RACE strategy, which stands for explain. So the way I start this sentence is, this explains that what? What was life like for immigrants? Be sure not to repeat the same thing that you put in your answer, but you still want it to be related to your answer. So maybe this explains that immigrants had both challenges and rewards from coming here to America. This explains that for some immigrants, the benefits outweighed the struggles, or maybe for some immigrants, the struggles outweighed the benefits. All right, this is your chance to put and explain what you learned here about immigrants moving to the United States. And then lastly, we always connect things to a theme of social studies. So I'm going to have this sentence say, this connects to, enter a theme of social studies, and tell me why. So let's talk about some possible themes. We're talking about people moving to America. So that could lead us to the theme migration and settlement, because they have migrated to the United States. Life is changing for people in America as well as the immigrants moving here. So maybe continuity and change. There were a lot of challenges, so maybe conflict and compromise. Okay, these are just a few examples here of themes that you could use, but be sure to explain how this question connects to that theme. All right, so good luck on your writing, and be sure to turn it in when it is complete.